This photo shows 41-year-old Stephen Plattle marrying his 19-year-old daughter Katie, who was pregnant with his child. Katie had been previously given up for adoption after her mother Alyssa realized that Stephen was physically abusing their daughter. But in 2016, Katie, who's now 18 years old, wanted to reconnect with her biological parents and actually ends up moving in with them. But after some time, Alyssa realizes that her husband is acting very differently and is even starting to dress better. She decides to ignore this change in behavior until 2017, when Katie gets pregnant and the father is her father. Alyssa immediately divorces Stephen, and just 2 months later, he and Katie are set to get married and give birth to a baby boy. Both the parents attend the wedding and support the marriage until 2018, when Katie begins to see a different side of Stephen. But when she tries to end the relationship, Stephen suffocates their newborn baby and stuffs him inside of a closet. He then proceeds to shoot both Katie and her adoptive dad before turning the gun on himself.
And this is why you should never kiss a baby on the lips.
This is a result of somebody kissing her on the mouth. When parents say not to kiss their children, this is one of the reasons.
This is a recent photo of 8-year-old Breelyn. She was born healthy, but as a baby, she was kissed on the lips by someone who had a cold sore, and her life changed forever. So after this happened, she began having seizures and became extremely sick. And since as a baby, your immune system is not developed, the HSV infection attacked her brain and left her with a severe brain injury. Her mother explains that the left side of her brain is 60% damaged and the right side is 10% damaged. And because of this, Breelyn has never been able to walk or talk, and doctors don't even know how long she'll live. There was actually another child in the past who had the same thing happen to them, and they only lived until the age of 7. And here's the thing, many people can argue that they've kissed their baby and nothing like this has ever happened, but this is still very possible, especially if you have a contagious virus in your system. I mean, just to be safe, we should all avoid doing this.
Scary facts you wish you never knew. It's very uncommon, but there have been many cases of people's intestines being ripped out from vacuum toilets on airplanes. So make sure to always stand up before you flush. A 58-year-old man living in Japan alone started hearing strange noises at night, and things around his house started moving around. So he decided to install a hidden camera and found out a woman had been living in his attic and cupboard for over a year. And the scary part is when he was checking the footage on his couch, she was actually in the cupboard right next to him. TikTok has a secret emoji. Type drool with the bars around it and see what you unlock. Until 2004, it was assumed the giant squid was only a myth, meaning there could be a handful of sea monsters we have yet to discover roaming the depths of the ocean. People with blue eyes are more likely to experience sleep paralysis more than anyone else. Now you can check if your phone activity is being monitored. Just click on share, slide to the very end and click more. And if any unknown apps appear before your contacts, delete them immediately. In 2013, Zac Efron was running through his house with socks on when he slipped and smashed his face so hard on his granite counter. It shattered his jaw and almost ended his life. He was knocked unconscious, and when he woke up, half his chin was hanging off his face. People then accused him of plastic surgery, but Zac Efron claimed that his cheek muscles overgrew to compensate for the muscles that were permanently damaged from the injury. If you like and follow me, you'll get smarter every day.
Fascinating as fuck. Jeremy Meeks, the man whose mugshot was so sexy that it landed him a modeling contract while he was still in jail. He served 13 months, and shortly after his release, he walked in New York Fashion Week. Eric Money is the only player to score points for both teams in a single NBA game. When the Nets played the Sixers in 1978, he scored for the Nets before being traded to the Sixers in the middle of the game. In World War II, British soldiers used well bikes, a small motorcycle that could fit in an air canister and be dropped out of planes with a parachute. On New Year's Eve in 2020, a friendly soccer match was played between rival drug cartels. However, it quickly became not so friendly when the match ended with 16 deaths and 5 severe injuries. In the year 1996, Ukraine handed over all their nuclear weapons to Russia in exchange for a guarantee to never be threatened or invaded. In 2009, Burger King ran a marketing campaign called the Whopper Sacrifice. Basically, they give you a free Whopper for deleting 10 of your friends off Facebook. Facebook actually had to shut down the campaign because people were getting offended that they were unadded for a Whopper.
English teacher down in South Florida, y'all, Damian Conte, busted inappropriate contact with a 16-year-old student. What? Yup. Check this video out. Make sure you follow True Crime with Megan.
Well, guys, here's another dirty teacher story. An English teacher has been arrested for allegedly committing sex crimes on a teenage student. Unbelievable. 35-year-old Damian Conti was arrested for unlawful sexual activity with a student or a minor and an offense against a student by an authority figure. He is behind bars as of yesterday, Tuesday, February 6th. This was after the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office say he committed sex acts against a student who was a student of his, actually. He was booked into jail on Tuesday night after authorities responded to a Burger King restaurant on Tuesday afternoon. This was regarding a report of possible unlawful sexual activity with a minor. At the restaurant, the teenage girl told deputies that she was having an inappropriate relationship with Damien. She also said that he was her teacher, but she did not want him to get in trouble. Two detectives then made contact with Damien, who told them that he had been suspended from work that day on Tuesday. He did identify himself as an English teacher and said the girl was indeed his student. Reportedly, the two would communicate through text messages and Instagram, and they even talked on the phone. He was listed as a teacher at South Tech Academy in Boynton Beach, and that is in Florida. I should have said that earlier. The principal of that school stated that they are cooperating with law enforcement and that the investigation is ongoing and that she would not comment any further on the situation. This morning, a judge set Damien's bond to $300,000 and ordered him not to have contact with the school or the minor or any other person under the age of 18.
I am. Oh, you're so traumatized, it makes me wanna cry. You dumb motherfucker, I loved you, I loved you, I loved you.
Craigslist stories that should be wiped from our memory. Number 3, Michelle Wilkins. Warning, this is a really dark case. On March 18th, 2015, Michelle Wilkins, who was 7 months pregnant, responded to a Craigslist ad stating that they were selling baby clothes in Boulder County, Colorado. She arrived at Danelle Lane's home where they talked about her pregnancy, and a little later on, Danelle lured her down to her basement, claiming that is where the baby clothes were. On their way down, that is when Danelle attacked her.
Hit her over the head with a lava lamp, which broke in its thick glass. She took a piece of the lava lamp, Michelle in the neck with it, and as it was flirting from Michelle's neck, she choked her, pushed her down on the bed, held a pillow over her until she was unconscious, cut Aurora, the baby, out. Aurora by then was, and carried Aurora upstairs and laid her dead in the bathtub.
To everyone's shock, Michelle did survive this brutal attack, however, her baby did not. Danelle, with tears filling her eyes, was sentenced to 100 years in prison, and honestly, that is exactly what she deserves.
This boy suffered a botched circumcision and was raised as a girl for 13 years. In 1965, David Reimer was born a boy along with his brother in Winnipeg, Canada. But at 8 months, he suffered a botched circumcision, and unfortunately, his genitals were accidentally burnt off. While his twin brother was fine, David's damage could not be fixed. So David's parents consulted with Dr. John Money, and he suggested that David undergo sex reassignment surgery and be given hormones and instead be raised as a girl. His parents took the advice and changed David's birth name from Bruce to Brenda. Dr. Money believed that David could be easily raised as a girl despite being born as a biological male. The doctor even told David's parents to never tell him or his twin brother what happened to him as a baby. As the twins got older, Dr. Money continued to see them for annual checkups, but it's been said that during these appointments, he would make them rehearse sexual acts as he photographed them. Throughout David's childhood, he rejected anything feminine and consistently showed masculine traits. By the time he reached 13 years old, he was suicidal, and his mom realized that he wasn't happy being a girl. Soon after, David's father finally told him the truth, and immediately he changed his name from Brenda to David. David then began taking testosterone and going through various operations to rebuild his genitals. But he continued to suffer from psychological trauma throughout his life due to Dr. Money's experiment, and not long after, his twin brother passed away. And sadly, at the age of 38, David committed suicide. A lot of people blame Dr. Money for David's death, but his defense is that it was the right thing to do at the time.
Online dating gone wrong. This little boy went to go meet up with a girl that he was online dating in real life. And sadly, she took his life. Arturo Pino was finally meeting up with a girl named Natalie Navarro. He was talking to her online for a while and wanted to take the relationship further. But she had other plans on her mind. She was planning on robbing Arturo with another male accomplice that was 21. His name was Yardy Martinez. But before we continue, meeting people online can be very dangerous, and I want all of y'all to stay safe out there. So please, before meeting up with somebody, you should always use publicdatacheck.com. Because I even use it all the time before I go on dates or even meetups with new friends. There are some wicked people out there. It allows you to do background checks on anyone and has even an unknown phone lookup so you can look up numbers always calling your phone that you don't have in your contacts. So don't forget to check out publicdatacheck.com to always stay safe. Back to the story. Navarro told police that she only talked to Yardy once, the accomplice, and had only met him the night of the incident. But authorities believe this was all planned and she's lying. Do you believe her? Rest in peace to Arturo. The two are now arrested and their court cases are currently pending.
This is what our parents warned us about. It's terrifying to think that a real human actually went through this. Angela Hammond was a mother from Clinton, Missouri, and in 1991 she was at a grocery store. And you know, back then the general public didn't have cell phones, so she went to the payphone to call her fiance Rob. Rob says the conversation was going normal, but then Angela had said that there was this weird car that kept circling her and like driving around. So Rob, doing what any normal boyfriend, fiance, husband would do, was like, get out of there, just go home, we'll talk later. So I guess that Angela thought that he had left, and so they continued talking, but then Angela says he came back. Then he hears her say something that I'm sure will haunt him for the rest of his life. She says, "Oh my God, what am I gonna do?" He then hears Angela scream, and then he hears silence. So Rob panicked, not knowing what to do. He knows he could call the cops, but it may be too late. He hops in his car and drives across town to go find Angela. So while on his way there, he hears someone screaming his name from a car going the opposite direction. So Rob hits a U-turn, he sees a pickup truck, and in a terrible twist of fate, Rob chasing down this car when his transmission goes out, and Angela is never seen or heard from again.
Hi, I'm Cam, and this is 1 Minute Murder Part 2. On December 1st, 1991, Omaima frantically knocked on her ex-boyfriend Jose's door and explained that her husband had attacked and raped her, forcing her to kill him in self-defense. She begged him to help her dispose of the body, promising him $75,000 and 2 motorcycles for his help. Jose calmed her down and told her to wait for him at her apartment. As soon as she left, Jose called the police. Trigger warning, the details I'm about to go into are very gruesome and brutal. When police arrived on the scene, they walked into what seemed like a nightmare. There were bags of organs in Bill's red Corvette, trash bags filled with pieces of limbs, blood on the bedroom mattress, and a skinned human torso hanging from some clothes hangers in the bathroom. Mama insisted to police that the human remains were the aftermath of a person Bill had killed and that he was away on a business trip in Florida. The story was quickly shot down when they found Bill's head in the freezer wrapped in aluminum foil. Neighbors had told police that they had been hearing Bill's garbage disposal grinding for days. Not only was Bill's head in the freezer, it had burns consistent with having been thrown in a vat of boiling oil. His hands were found in a fryer mixed with turkey bits. Mama told psychologists she had cooked Bill's ribs and dipped them in barbecue sauce. She said that nothing was sweeter than her husband's flesh. 100 pounds of Bill's corpse still remains unaccounted for.
You are guilty for the deaths caused by your son's murders. That is what a jury just told Jennifer Crumbley, convicting her on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter related to a school shooting committed by her then 15-year-old son back in 2021. You know, there's been a lot of anticipation about this ruling, not only just to see what's going to happen to Crumbley specifically, but because this was widely seen as a precedent-setting case. Right? The argument that a parent can be held responsible criminally for their kid's shooting spree has been described as a novel and unusual legal theory. And so now that we've seen this play out here, we may see more of this in the future. Not just also with the shooter's father, James Crumbley, who's going to trial with an identical set of charges next month. And so with this now setting precedent, it's important to remember the specifics. Right? The Crumbleys bought the gun for their son used in the shooting as a gift just days before the attack, with them giving him access to a firearm despite his mental health struggles. They then also ignored numerous alarming warning signs, including on the day of the shooting, teachers finding a note that he had left with a drawing of a gun, someone being shot, and the words, "The thoughts won't stop, help me." There were some damning texts involved here. You had the Crumbleys, yes, meeting with the counselors, but then refusing to take their son home for the day. Also, notably with Jennifer and James having, separate trials, Jennifer's lawyers actually tried to argue that her husband was responsible because he improperly secured the gun, but the jury just didn't buy that. And so now we'll have to wait to see what happens to Jennifer, because she faces up to 15 years in prison for each count. Though there, she'll reportedly be able to serve each concurrently. But follow to stay in the loop.
You may have heard about this story, but I don't think you know how dark it is. In October of 2011, a man intentionally cut open the cages of 56 wild animals he was keeping in his backyard, unleashing them on his town. But let's talk about why it happened and the man who did it. And if you don't want spoilers, this week's episode is all about people that try to own exotic and wild animals and their deadly consequences, so you don't want to miss it. So in October of 2011, people in Zanesville, Ohio started calling 911 when they saw lions and tigers in the woods. Police already knew about Terry Thompson, who lived in the area and kept wild animals in cages on his property, including lions, tigers, other big cats, bears, baboons, you name it. But in Ohio at the time, there technically weren't any laws against that. So though Terry was keeping these animals in horrible conditions, he wasn't really doing anything wrong. So the police go to Terry's property to check out what's going on, but when they get there, not only do they find that Terry had taken his own life, but he had cut open all of the cages of all of his animals before he did it. And to make matters worse, he had surrounded himself with raw chicken as if he was trying to entice the animals to come eat him. The police ultimately were able to locate him because he was being consumed by one of his tigers. So this guy John actually worked with Terry, and he said that the night before this happened, Terry received a letter suggesting that his wife had been having an affair. So that's our best guess as to why this happened, but ultimately 49 of his 56 animals had to be put down by the police. And lastly, and probably most disturbing of all, when the coroner's report came back on Terry, they found that his genitals were missing. And it was unclear if that happened before or after the tiger got him.
This is by far one of the worst cases in human history, and this is a massive trigger warning. This is the murder of Christine Siluan. She was from the Philippines and was a volunteer in church, and she used the church every day from 4 to 6 p.m. On the day of her murder, she went to church as per her schedule, but she didn't come home after that. Her parents then started to worry, and they began searching for her with their neighbors. And what they found was absolutely horrid. They found her body in a farm where half her skull was sliced like a piece of pizza, and her face was literally skinned down to her skull. Also, her brain was completely destroyed by acid. The police then started investigating, and they checked the cameras and found out that she was with a guy. The people started protesting about this case, and the case was given to special officers. They had a lot of pressure on this. A week before this happened, Christine broke up with her boyfriend, so the police took him into custody. And he was proving he was home all day when she was murdered, but officers were completely tired of this case, and they then sentenced him as the murderer. But after a few months, a thief was caught in a store where he confessed he murdered and raped Christine. He said he started talking to her on Facebook with a fake account and was using fake photos of another guy who was pretty good looking. Christine fell for the guy, and she assumed that he was about 20 years old, and they started texting daily. One day, they both decided to meet up at 6 p.m. near the church she went to. But upon arriving, Christine noticed that this was not the guy she was talking to, and this guy was around 40-ish years old. She then refused to talk to him and tried to go back, but he held her hands extremely forcefully, and then took her far away from town and raped her repeatedly. He then put iron rods inside her personal organs and then cut her face in half, and then skinned her whole head down to the skull. And to make it even worse, he put acid inside of her head. The autopsy also revealed that her tongue, trachea, esophagus, parts of her neck, and right ear were missing. The self-proclaimed killer of this case, named Renato Lanas, said that he used barber-type scissors and stabbed her 30 times on different parts of her body and skinned her face. Christine Siluan was only 16 years old, and this case is extremely haunting. There's a picture of her body in the field they found her on, but Google did a really good job of not showing it and hiding it. So even if you do go looking for the picture, I don't think you're going to find it. This is one of those cases that after you get done reading about it, you just feel some sort of uneasiness. I feel so bad for Christine's family, and I can't imagine finding my daughter in this state. May Christine Siluan rest in peace.
Another true crime story of how they were caught. In Lubbock, Texas, a man noticed a suitcase while working at the landfill. He decided to open it up and saw a body in the fetal position. She appeared to be badly bruised and beaten, and she had a tattoo of the name Summer on her ankle. Police would determine the cause of death was asphyxiation, and they found through fingerprint records her name was Summer Lee Baldwin. The suitcase did not contain fingerprints, but police were able to find a tag and contact the manufacturing company, who said that this suitcase was only sold in Walmart stores. The UPC on the bag tracked back to a specific Walmart store which showed a man at about 3 a.m. on the day of the crime purchasing the bag along with some latex gloves. Credit card was used in the purchase, which came back to a man named Rocindo Rodriguez. They tracked his card to a gas station which happened to be near a Holiday Inn that he stayed. Police would go into his hotel room and find blood on the carpet, the box spring, and the sheets. Police also found a trash can in the hallway that contained a Walmart bag and latex gloves in that bag. Police found him taking a selfie of him getting onto a bus back to San Antonio and cell phone records showing him going back to his family's home there. Latex gloves police found had Summer's DNA on the outside, and on the inside had his DNA along with her DNA. He would deny involvement, and police would search his computer and find something even more sinister. Police found the suspect was in online communication with Summer and had also been searching news articles about the woman. Furthermore, police uncovered communication online between him and a 16-year-old girl named Joanna Rogers. Police were now suspecting that the suspect was involved in another crime with another woman. Joanna had disappeared 18 months earlier and had left her phone, keys, clothes behind and had just disappeared. Phone records would show Rocindo making a phone to the family's landline the night of that crime. Police learned that the family's trash went to the same landfill as the first victim, so they started organizing a search to search it. After several months of searching, a backhoe would uncover another suitcase which would contain Joanna's body. Dental records would confirm the identity of Joanna. More DNA from Summer's rape kit would come back to Rocindo. Rocindo was sentenced to death in Texas and executed, and that was how he was caught.
Boy comes home with baby. Mom is shocked when he says, "I'm sorry, I had to do it." Sarah was washing dishes when she heard a knock on the door. To her surprise, when she opened it, she found her 8-year-old son Max standing outside, holding a baby. She asked Max, "What are you doing?" Initially, Sarah thought it was a doll, but upon closer inspection, she realized it was a real baby. With a firm tone, she asked again, "Whose baby is this?" Max began to tremble, tears rolling down his face. "Mom, I'm really sorry, but I had to do this," Max replied, his voice shaking. Feeling confused and panicked, Sarah quickly took the baby from Max's hands and inspected it carefully. "What happened, Max?" Sarah tried to keep her voice calm. "I was playing in the park and someone approached me," Max explained. "They gave me the baby and told me to take care of her. Then they ran away. I didn't know what to do, so I brought her home immediately." Sarah knew how dangerous it was for a child to be entrusted with a baby, and she couldn't believe someone would do such a thing. It was a serious matter. Sarah immediately called the police, waiting for their arrival. About an hour later, the police arrived. They took the baby and Max's statement, promising to investigate who left the baby with him. However, Sarah and Max did not hear any updates from the police. Worried about the baby being in potential danger again, Sarah felt that Max hadn't told her the whole story, so she decided to take matters into her own hands. If you'd like to continue the story, you can reply with "baby"